This Health Ranger Report Pandemic Podcast is brought to you by NaturalNews.com for uncensored reporting and HealthRangerStore.com for lab-tested preparedness supplies such as storable food, full-face medical masks, biostructured silver first aid gel, and iodine, only while supplies last. This is an emergency alert for Friday, March 20th. This is Mike Adams here, pandemic.news and naturalnews.com. And in this podcast, we're going to cover the accelerating collapse of the global banking and finance system, as well as collapsing food lines in the United States and probably around the world. But I have direct information about what's happening in the United States and some practical things of what you can do. So, well, first, let's actually talk about the collapsing food supply lines. So, let me explain the structure of how food gets onto the shelves at the grocery stores. And yes, I'm trying to remain calm because I don't want people are afraid enough already. So I'm just trying to speak in a calm, cool, collected voice here. I'm just going to describe the facts of how the food system works. Once you are fully aware of these facts, the conclusions will be terrifying, but I'm not going to scream here because you can scream in the privacy of your own quarantined home, I suppose. Here's how it works. And the reason I know this is because we are in the food business. So my online store, HealthRangerStore.com, which has just about sold out of absolutely every possible thing. I think for the first time in 5 years, we actually have space in the warehouse. It's amazing. Just everything's gone, cleared out, gone, out of stock. We can't get new supplies. So every time we try to order, and this has been going on for a month, every time we try to order, the orders are out of stock, not available. They can't ship because they're locked down or their employees can't come to work. The supply lines have cratered. We had previously ordered, for example, 5,000 kilos of vitamin C, ascorbic acid. And when we got the shipment, we're like, hey, this is only half the vitamin C. They said, yep, you get 2,500 kilos and that's it. We're wiped out. That was our supplier, which is one of the major suppliers of nutrition and supplements and so on in the world. And as of this morning, and this is what actually encouraged me to pick up this recorder and record this, as of this morning, they are no longer answering their phones. So as of, and this is happening with many suppliers. And I went online. I mean, so they're not even functioning anymore. Okay. I went online to Walmart and to H-E-B, which is the major grocery chain in Texas. And both Walmart and H-E-B have the drive-by pickup service, which a lot of grocery stores have. You know, they call it curbside or whatever. You drive in, you park, and they bring the food out to you. Both Walmart and H-E-B have no time slots available ever for picking up food. The Walmart message says, sorry, due to increased demand, no times are currently available. Please check back later or change locations. Like that's not a message you want to see in the middle of a food collapse that will, by the way, very quickly move into food riots. And that's a term that I use very deliberately in a calm voice. Food riots will be coming to America soon because you see, remember for the first month of this, the media told everybody that you don't need to stock up on anything. It's a horrible idea. Don't stock up. Remember they said, oh, fear is the worst thing. Fear is going to get people killed, but not the virus. Don't worry about the virus, but fear is bad. And if you buy food, then you're spreading fear. Remember all that? Notice how all that's obsolete now? All that has vanished. And now, guess who's got the most fear? The people who did not stock up, right? And so that's why, by the way, being a prepper prevents fear. Being prepared reduces the fear and panic across society. It also helps the supply lines because if you prep in advance of the crisis, then you don't have to buy food during the crisis. So you can allow other people to buy who are kind of the latecomers to the whole game. They will have more supplies of it available because you prepped in advance. Make sense? So preppers are good for society. Preppers create redundancy and they help ease supply line demand at these peak times. Now, getting back to the structure of how food distribution works. So let's work it backwards. Let's start with food on the shelves at your local Walmart, let's say, groceries at your local Walmart. Now, Walmart does a great job making groceries available. They actually carry a lot of organics too. Now, where does Walmart get the food to stock on the shelves? Of course, it comes from food distributors. And these are the middlemen, so to speak, of the food industry, and distributors buy from food manufacturers and producers, which could include farmers, but typically it's more manufacturing companies like Kellogg's that makes cereal. So really the way it works is the farmers grow the wheat and the corn. Farmers sell it to the grain processors. The grain processors process it and sell it to Kellogg's. Kellogg's sells it to distributors. Distributors aggregate all this food, and distributors then sell it to Walmart, and then Walmart sells it to you. So that's typically how it goes. Now, normally in a non-panicked, non-collapsing society, there is a buffer of inventory at most of these stages. So Walmart itself at retail probably doesn't have much of a buffer, but the distributors typically have some amount of buffer that is excess inventory that's in the pipeline, so to speak. And then also the manufacturers typically have some amount of buffer, excess inventory. And then the grain processors have excess inventory a little bit. These companies all try to minimize that so they don't have this overhead, but they inevitably have excess inventory just in the pipeline. Products on the trucks on the way to the next step. And that excess inventory has now been wiped out throughout the entire pipeline. So what has happened is, for the last 2 weeks or so, grocery stores, maybe it's only about 10 days, grocery stores have been restocking shelves using up all of the excess inventory in the pipeline. And now the pipeline is wiped out. And so Walmart and grocery stores and Whole Foods, the reason they now increasingly look like they've been looted by a swarm of human locusts or something, like they actually look like a zombie apocalypse has come through the store, is because there is no more inventory in the pipeline. And because of the shutdown of farming operations and food processing and the lockdowns in, well, California, for example, which produces an enormous amount of the food for the whole country. I think 30% of the fresh vegetables and fruits, maybe something around that number, and almonds and so on, all comes out of California. Well, that's been shut down, you see. And New York has just issued a giant total statewide shutdown order, and Washington State's probably going to be next because of what happened in Seattle. And just as a side note, by the way, I should mention, all of this is because of censorship. China censored the scientists that were trying to blow the whistle to try to cover it up. And big tech has been censoring us in America, who have been urging people to get prepared, to take antivirals, to take vitamin C and zinc, and to have extra supplies and be ready for this kind of collapse. And we've all been censored. So censorship is what made this thing explode, just as a side note. But back to the food supply lines, the upshot realization that is the reason I'm recording this podcast today is that there will not be food left until somehow society is restarted. And even then, failed harvests and a lot of food that's rotting and ruining as it's not maybe stuck in some phase of the supply line, there will be shortages for the next 18 months. And the government already knows this. Why do you think those US senators sold millions of dollars in stock the day after they were briefed in a classified briefing by the FDA, the CDC, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, all that? Remember that? Now it's big news. Those senators, I think Burr, Republican Senator Burr is one of them. They sold millions of dollars in stock the very next day, even while they were telling the country, "Oh, everything's fine. Don't stockpile anything. Don't prep. You don't need a mask. Everything's great." While they're like, "Sell, sell," behind the scenes, "Sell, sell, sell," panic selling stocks because they knew what was coming. And by the way, those senators, just as another side note, they should be arrested and charged with insider trading. They should go to jail. There's a lot of people who should go to jail right now, including the CEOs of Google, YouTube, Twitter. Jack Dorsey should be arrested for covering up the truth of this pandemic through censorship. But that's another podcast. Let me get back to the food. So the supply lines will not be restored anytime soon. And this is why I have increased my recommendation of survival supplies to 18 months. And I know that seems like a long time, but if you're not there yet, if you've got 3 months of supplies, try to get 6 months. If you've got 6 months, go for a year. You're going to be, well, let's put it this way. America is going on a nationwide calorie restriction diet. It's going on the path of Venezuela. Dumpster diving will be a common sight in American cities very soon. But that even assumes there's anything left in the dumpsters, because usually the dumpsters are from retail stores and restaurants that are dumping things, and restaurants are all basically closing down. And if food retailers don't have food, there's nothing in the dumpsters. So even dumpster diving may turn up empty-handed. So on a practical note, then, what this means for you is start growing food. And you can get 5-gallon buckets and you can put dirt in them and some fertilizer, and you can grow potatoes. And so what you need to be doing right now, and I'm doing this exact thing, you need to be going out and getting potatoes from the grocery store, 5-pound bag of russet potatoes or Idaho potatoes or whatever it is. Get yourself some taters and cut them up, put them in the dirt. And if you don't know how to do that, watch that movie with Matt Damon where he was on Mars. What was it called? The Martian, based on the book, which I listened to as an audiobook. That was kind of fun. In The Martian, the Matt Damon character grew potatoes on Mars in human compost, human feces. And that was what kept him alive. And potatoes are very easy to grow. And the thing about potatoes is they have the best caloric return per calorie of investment. So you can grow potatoes with very little work compared to the amount of calories that you get out of them. And potatoes require, I don't know, some of you are more master gardeners than I am, but I think you need about, 120 days, 110 days? I guess it depends on the variety. You need several months to harvest the potatoes. So if you want to eat, what is this, March 20th? So let's say if you want to eat in July, you should be planting potatoes today. If you want to eat in August, you should be planting potatoes a month from now, and so on and so forth. It's time to start literally growing food. So those of you who purchase garden seeds and all that, it's a really important time to start planting your garden, especially since you might be quarantined at home anyway, and maybe you have nothing else to do. I don't know. Maybe you have some free time on your hands for the first time in a long time. And so you could grow food. And if you're going to grow food, start with potatoes. And you say, well, I don't have any dirt. Well, you probably have dirt in your yard, unless you're in an apartment or something. Probably have dirt. You just don't want to dig up your lawn yet because you haven't mentally crossed that threshold. Well, let me help you. Dig up the freaking lawn. Just do it. Just get dirt. Put it in a bucket. Cut up your potatoes into quarters or whatever, and plant them in the dirt. Put some water, a little bit of fertilizer, and you too can grow food. It's really easy, as long as you've got water, and as long as you've got sunlight and dirt. So that's something that everybody should be doing now. And isn't it interesting? A few years ago, I released the Food Rising Mini Farm Grow Box, and I've got tons of those boxes that I've used over the years. And although I haven't started this yet, I'm about to crank up a bunch of lettuce and herbs and green peppers and tomatoes. You can grow tomatoes out of those boxes like crazy. You can grow tomatoes in lots of things. You don't need a special box. It just needs water and nutrients. You need the calcium, magnesium based fertilizers with the additional, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and so on. You can still go out and buy fertilizer, by the way, because this hasn't occurred to a lot of people yet that they're going to have to grow food if they want to eat. So the upshot here, and then I'm going to move on to the finance part of this talk. The upshot is that the food supply is collapsing. Actually, it pretty much has collapsed. And there will not be sufficient supplies in the grocery stores to keep people fed. And as we had from a previous leak and sources from people in the government, the US government is going to take over. Well, not take over, you should say. They're going to protect and oversee the food supply. So you're going to have National Guard troops guarding highway trucks that are carrying food supplies to retailers. You're going to have very tight military style controls of the parking lots of Walmarts and Targets and Costco's and so on. And you're going to have a quota system of how much food you can get. And there's going to be government, let's say, assistance with soldiers and such of food production, farms, grain processing, and so on. So a lot of these businesses that have collapsed are going to be restarted under the control of the government. And one of the big worries in all of this is that we're now seeing the spread of incredible levels of socialism or government centralized control of the economy, which none of us want to see long term. But in the short term, you can certainly understand we got to keep people fed. So it's really a great idea for the government to come along and help this food production get back online. But I don't want to end up in a situation like North Korea, where the government tells you how much rice you can eat, and if you speak out against the government, then your allotment is canceled. And that's kind of where we're headed, at least in that direction. Hopefully we won't get there. Now, on the finance side of things, just in case you didn't have enough to worry about there on the food side, yeah, we're all going to become farmers now. This is what happens as society collapses. Oh, and by the way, a lot of people obviously won't make it for all the obvious reasons. I don't have to go into it. But on the finance side, we're now watching the collapse of the world's financial system, which was based on debt and leverage and fake instruments of derivatives and interest rate bets and things like that, and zombie corporations that have no earnings but had sky high stock valuations. The whole system is rigged. The whole system was largely faked, and the whole system is cratering. The name of the game now is, and I've said this, in previous months, long before this quarantine, this coronavirus. I said the name of the game for this coming year is going to be just to protect assets you have. Don't even think about earning anything. Just try to not lose it. You may remember me saying that if you've heard my podcast for very long. And here we are, where the stock market has cratered, 30% or something. And some stocks are down more than 50%. And we're watching interest rates plunge toward zero at the interbank level. We are watching Treasury auctions get bought up in record time. So you may not be aware of this, but one of the things that I've been telling family and friends who ask me, they're like, well, where's my money going to be safe? And I say, well, Treasury Direct is you can buy treasuries directly, and there's an auction once or twice a week, and you can get like 30-day T-bills, and they currently pay roughly 0%. And you might think, oh, that's horrible. It's a 0% rate. Yeah, okay. Well, keep it in the stock market then and lose 20% or 50%. 0% sounds pretty damn good. It means you get all your money back, even though the dollar itself is eroding. So because of the massive money printing that's going on now, and the bailouts, and the Trump administration wanting to send out checks like thousands of dollars for everyone, helicopter money, we're just going to fly cargo planes across America and just drop cash everywhere. And basically, that's what that is. It's going to lead to massive price inflation because you have an increased money supply of fiat currency chasing the same limited, scarce inventory of goods that are in very high demand, such as toilet paper. Now, if this trend continues, you'll be able to just take the US dollar and use that as your toilet paper because the money will be less valuable than the toilet paper that you can buy with it. So, echoes of Weimar Germany and Zimbabwe and modern day Venezuela come to mind, and Argentina and so on. If you know anything about the history of money, all fiat currencies eventually collapse. And this virus may be the one that collapses the dollar. So, what does this mean? Well, number one, obviously, if you're still in the stock market, you're going to lose horribly. So, there's still time to get out and not lose more. I mean, look, I'm not your financial advisor. You're welcome, and you should talk to your financial advisor, the same person who told you that the market would never crash, by the way. And you should decide what's good for you. But here's what I'm telling people personally, that everybody should have been out of stocks long before this with money in banks, typically. Well, banks are going to start to crater soon. So you're going to have to stay ahead of the tidal wave that's coming here. And you got to move your money out of the banks and into treasuries. Well, treasury auctions are already starting to get queued up and everything's getting sold out in record time because everybody's trying to dive into T-bills as the last safe refuge. Well, where do you go from there? The answer to that is things I've been talking about for many, many years. Land, gold, silver, guns, ammo, diesel fuel, food-producing farmland, tractors, all these things that have inherent value that cannot vanish overnight. And notice I didn't say cryptocurrency. I've always been concerned that could crater instantly. We'll see what happens there. Although, I don't know, crypto could be a safe haven, but it's been very volatile during all this as well. I prefer real things, so physical gold and silver. But of course, the problem is the world elite and the globalists who are all either in on this or tied into the awareness of what's actually happening, which is a global depopulation event and a global economic reset. These wealthy globalists have been buying up all the gold and silver. So they're doing that so much that the spot price of silver versus the actual physical price that you have to bid on the physical market, there is a huge gap between those two. So silver spot price might be $12 an ounce, but you have to pay $22 an ounce to get silver on the open market, physical silver in your hands, which is the real price discovery that's happening in the silver market, is supply and demand in the secondary market. So let's say you have a retirement fund or savings account or something, and you don't want it to disappear because you're planning on living on that. You could move it into treasuries, and in treasuries, and you can do that. I think it's treasurydirect.gov or something like that. You can search for it, Treasury Direct. You can move it into treasuries and you'll lose maybe 10% this year of purchasing power or more as the government prints a lot of fiat currency to try to bail out everybody. You might lose 20% of your purchasing power as the dollar erodes, but you'll still have that money unless the dollar itself collapses and the US government collapses and the treasury collapses, which is a scenario. So, but you have some liquidity in T-bills. I think you can buy, the shortest duration is 30 days. So you can get your money out every 30 days or put it back in every 30 days or whatever you want to do. But you're no more than 30 days away from your money instead of like a bank CD, which typically you're a year away from your money or something like that. So treasuries can make sense as a short-term measure to protect you from bank failures, because banks are going to fail before the treasury fails. And the treasury may not fail. It's possible the US government may still survive this. I don't know. I give that 50-50 at this point. Who knows? But if you want to move out of treasuries, then you got to go into all these other assets that I mentioned, such as land and gold and silver and things that have value like that. Now, the issue with land is that real estate prices nationwide are about to collapse. So right now would be a horrible time to buy, in my opinion, to buy houses or land or commercial businesses or commercial real estate, because there's a wave of bankruptcies coming. The entire real estate market is going to be recalibrated. It's going to drop 40 to 50% maybe across the board. And in some areas and in some cases, it could drop a lot more. It could drop 80% in certain places. So it would be crazy to buy land right now when you might be able to buy that same land in literally 3 months from now for half the price. But in order to do that, you have to not lose your cash in the meantime, right? Hence treasuries. I don't think the US Treasury is going to collapse this calendar year. I don't think so. I think banks will collapse starting next week, but the Treasury will not. I think the Treasury may be able to get through this, but you're going to lose, again, purchasing power because the dollar will be eroded. We're going to have price inflation. We're going to have monetary debasement at levels that we've never seen before. So the federal government is stealing money from you to pay off Boeing and whoever they bail out, the airline industry, whatever, and to have helicopter money for all the people. They're stealing that money from you first through monetary debasement. So there's mass theft going on. You will lose some value of the money that you have in treasuries. But at this point, the question is to minimize the losses so that by the end of this whole thing, you might be lucky to be left with, I don't know, 2/3 of the actual money that you started with. Whereas people who don't take these steps are going to be left with a wipeout. I mean, imagine a wipeout of their retirement and so on. So again, I'm not your financial advisor. I can't tell you what to do. I'm just sharing with you some of the brainstorming that I'm going through with people I know who are asking me what to do. Personally, what I'm going to be doing is investing in food supplies in the warehouse. So if I can get more inventory into the warehouse, I know that I can sell that at a reasonable profit and I can help people get prepared. So that's what we're trying to do, but we're having a lot of trouble buying supplies right now. So we're in a situation where we've got cash right now and we can't even spend it. There's just not enough out there to even purchase. So I'm not yet sure exactly what I'm going to do with that. I want to have supplies for people, but we're unable to get those supplies right now. So the summary of this is involving food and involving finances. Food supplies, start growing your own food, start learning how to grow potatoes, and shore up your food supplies to very high levels, and use those supplies if you can to help others. I'm going to be donating food to a local church. The last time I checked my refrigerator, see, this is weird. I'm in an unusual, unique situation that most people aren't in, where at our Health Ranger store, we've had foods expire over the last couple of years and expire to the point where you can't legally sell them. So we pull them off the shelves and they usually come to me, to my ranch for just disposal. And I've been feeding like 500 pounds of oats to my donkeys and things like that. But I've also been saving as much as I can. So I'm literally sitting on like 250 pounds of almonds that we over purchased and cannot legally sell. I mean, think about that. Right now, in a massive nationwide food shortage, we can't sell almonds to people that are perfectly good. I'm eating them myself. And I would throw almonds in with the goat food, feeding almonds to my goats, but the FDA won't let us sell those almonds to the public. Imagine that. I'm sitting on, I don't know how many hundreds of pounds of oats still as well. And I've got maybe 100 pounds of camu powder and goji berries and chia seeds and just all kinds of stuff that expired and we couldn't sell it anymore. So I don't know if the laws are going to change or something, or if I could. I mean, we've even talked to local food banks before about this, and they will not accept food that is expired. I mean, imagine that. That's how insane our society has become. That's part of why this collapse is happening, because society has become so dysfunctional that the food banks don't want food. That's perfectly fine. We tried to donate fresh farm eggs to the food banks before. They wouldn't take it Because, oh, we can't take eggs unless they're from the grocery store. All they basically, you know what they want is just Campbell's soup. That's all they want. A bunch of canned soup, which is toxic garbage with the MSG and high levels of sodium and everything. But that's all they want. So we don't even have a food bank system that wants food. And then I'm sitting on food and I can't sell it without, I don't know, getting fined or arrested or something. I mean, that's where we are in this country. But I suppose if things get desperate enough, maybe I could take some of this food to the local church and maybe talk some sense into them. Hey, God wants your people to not starve. Have some almonds. They expired 6 months ago, but they're perfectly good. I'm going to try that conversation and just see how that goes. But at the end of the day, I can't fix stupid. You know what I mean? I can't fix the stupidity in society. And if I end up sitting on, thousands of pounds of food for some reason, I'll just help neighbors or whatever, or friends or whatever I can. Okay. I mean, I'm just, what else am I supposed to do? I did stop feeding it all to the donkeys, by the way, since there's plenty of grass now that the spring is here and the donkeys are fine. I fed them a lot of food over the winter to kind of augment the hay, But this is the society in which we live now. It's totally insane. Food supplies are cratering. Financial system is cratering. And if you want to survive this with your life intact and with your finances even close to being intact, you need to stay ahead of the curve. You know how they say with a virus, flatten the curve? Well, I say with preparedness, get ahead of the curve. Because the things that I'm telling you today are things that the masses will realize, I don't know, a couple weeks later, maybe. I've been ahead of the curve this entire time. You probably noticed that. But the curve is catching up quickly. This tidal wave of events is accelerating. And if you don't get ahead of it, you can be caught in a bank failure. You could be caught without food supplies. You could end up, in a situation of starvation. I don't know. And I don't want any bad things to happen to you, which is why I'm recording this. So society is about to radically change. Things are going to be very different from here forward. And much of what we think we know will collapse. And I haven't even talked about firearms and ammunition yet, but that's another conversation we can have another day. Hopefully you've got a firearm for self-defense, and hopefully you've got some hollow point ammo, and you've got a holster so you can carry your gun, and you're carrying a spare mag, and you know how to reload your firearm and things like that. We could talk about that later because the food riots are coming. So you don't want to be in a parking lot of crazy, insane, desperate people with, National Guard troops on one side and some armed gang of desperados on the other side. You don't want to be caught in the middle of that crossfire. No way. You want to be out of there. And the way you stay out of there is to have your own supplies and grow your own potatoes and then defend what you have with your firearms. And right now, there's a whole lot of people in California that are lining up to buy guns, and they can't believe there's a 10-day waiting period that they voted for. What an amazing karmic event. And there's also a bunch of liberals right now who are learning that you can't buy guns online. Because that's been a myth that they've pushed out there for a long time now. Like, they try to buy guns online, and turns out, we only ship to FFL gun dealers. And they're like, what's an FFL? And then they start to learn the whole thing. Hey, you can't buy guns online. Go figure. Wow. It's amazing how quickly this coronavirus is collapsing every myth of society, myth of the endless stock market, the myth of, gun control works, the myth of abundance, the myth of riches and wealth for everyone forever. No one will ever lose any money ever. The market, the myth that companies can have $20 billion, in valuation while having no revenues. How about the myth of Elon Musk and his endless stream of bullshit? If there's one thing that comes out of this, I hope Elon Musk goes silent in all of this. And he's still out there saying that children are immune, which is false, and that this will end in 6 weeks, which is insane. Elon Musk is a danger to society with his disinformation and his hucksterism and his fraud. And if Tesla craters because of this, at least that's one silver lining of this entire pandemic. And if Elon Musk goes away and retires and on an island somewhere, that'd be great for the rest of us. He is a horrible person. Nevertheless, I guess opinions vary widely, and emotions are pretty flared right now. So I'll leave you with that. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. Keep reading pandemic.news. We will do our best to keep you posted. Get prepared now. Don't hesitate. This is coming. When it comes to prepping, you not only need good products that can help keep you alive, awake, aware, and nourished during difficult times, you also need products you can trust. At the Health Ranger store, we do extensive laboratory testing using an in-house lab that's ISO accredited. It's inspected, it's audited. It's a 2-year process to even get that accreditation. We use multiple mass spec instruments, state-of-the-art science. I'm a published science author as well and a patent holder on several technologies, some of which we use variations of in our lab. The purpose of this lab is to help you make sure you get clean foods, superfoods, storable foods for emergency preparedness and survival use. We have a certified organic lab-tested, what's called Ranger Bucket collection of storable foods with some survival gear in the buckets to help you even boil water and cook those foods and so on. It's a fantastic product. We can barely keep it in stock even during normal times. In a crisis, we'll be wiped out of this product because it actually takes us a lot of time to make those products. But if they're in stock, you can get them now at healthrangerstore.com/prepwithmike. In fact, go to that URL, healthrangerstore.com/prepwithmike, and you'll see some of our survival and preparedness supplies, including iodine, colloidal silver products and gel first aid products, storable foods, superfoods, medicinal herbs for first aid, and much more. We have a lot of products for you to help you be self-reliant, to be safe, to survive difficult circumstances, natural disasters, and all kinds of things. If you want to get prepared, do it with us at the Health Ranger store so that you know you're getting safe, clean, laboratory-verified preparedness foods, supplements, and other related products. Again, the URL is healthrangerstore.com/prepwithmike. All one word, no spaces. Prep with Mike. I'm Mike Adams. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. If you want to support our mission, visit us at healthrangerstore.com for the world's largest selection of lab-verified superfood and nutritional products for healthy living. It's at healthrangerstore.com.